Desperate to save his trembling daughter, Janitor Liam Byrne accused the untouchable CEO of corporate murder with nothing but pieced together shredded documents as proof. His reckless confrontation exposed a bioweapon conspiracy that would turn enemies into allies in a race against a disease engineered to kill. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. Ma'am, your company is stealing, Liam Byrne said, his voice steady despite the thundering of his heart against his ribs. Aveline Langford froze, her manicured hands hovering above the polished glass conference table. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor, two ceiling windows behind her, casting her silhouette in sharp relief against the backdrop of the city's skyline. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the soft hum of the building's ventilation system. Excuse me? She finally said, her tone glacial. Liam stood his ground, clutching the manila folder in his calloused hand. His blue janitor's uniform was a stark contrast to the sleek, monochromatic elegance of the executive suite. He didn't belong here, a fact made abundantly clear by the security guards tensing by the door, ready to remove him at the slightest signal from their CEO. Your company, Langford Industries, he continued, is stealing. Not just money, lives. Aveline's eyes narrowed. In 15 years of building her empire, she had faced down hostile takeovers, weathered market crashes, and silenced countless critics. But never had she been confronted so directly by someone who cleaned her building's floors. Byrne, Liam Byrne. Mr. Byrne, I don't know how you got into my private conference room, but I suggest you leave before I have you removed and charged with trespassing. She reached for the intercom button, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Neurosynaptic decay syndrome, Liam said, the clinical term clumsy in his mouth. Aveline's finger froze, hovering above the button. Something flickered across her face, so brief anyone else might have missed it. But Liam had spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying her, learning to read the micro-expressions of the woman who held his daughter's fate in her perfectly manicured hands. That slight widening of her eyes, the almost imperceptible tightening of her lips, it was the reaction he'd been counting on. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but the ice in her voice had cracked just enough. I think you do. Liam placed the folder on the table and slid it toward her. Your brother Kellen has it. So does my daughter Maya. The air in the room seemed to crystallize around them. One of the security guards took a step forward, but Aveline raised her hand slightly, stopping him. My daughter is 7 years old, Liam continued, his voice softening despite himself. She was diagnosed 6 months ago. The doctors gave her 2 years, maybe less. Her hands have already started to shake. He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. But you already know exactly what that's like, don't you? Aveline stared at him, her face a carefully composed mask. She made no move to touch the folder. How did you get this information? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm a janitor, Ms. Langford. I'm invisible. People talk around me like I don't exist. They leave things on desks and shredders. He tapped the folder with one finger. The Langford Initiative, your private research program, the one that doesn't officially exist. You've been going through confidential documents. Yes, that's a criminal offense. So is what's happening at your North Valley facility. A heavy silence fell between them. Outside the windows, the city continued its afternoon bustle, oblivious to the confrontation unfolding 50 stories above its streets. Aveline finally reached for the folder, her movements deliberate and controlled. She opened it, scanning the contents with practiced efficiency. Her face betrayed nothing, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the pages. These documents are incomplete, she said, but authentic. She looked up at him, reassessing. What do you want, Mr. Byrne? Money? I want to save my daughter. And you think threatening me is the way to do that? I'm not threatening you, Liam said, meeting her gaze. I'm giving you a chance to stop what's happening before it's too late. Too late for what? For your brother. Aveline closed the folder, her composure slipping for just a moment. My brother is receiving cutting-edge experimental treatment that could save his life. Your brother is being used as a lab rat, Liam countered. And the treatment isn't working. It's making him worse. Doctor, Finch is falsifying the results, hiding the side effect. The preliminary data shows increased mortality rates in all test subjects. That's not possible. I've seen the reports. You've seen what Finch wanted you to see. Aveline stood abruptly, smoothing her tailored suit. This meeting is over. Security will escort you out. She pressed the intercom. Harris, please come in and remove Byrne from the premises. The door opened and 2 guards stepped forward flankingly. Ms. Langford, Liam said, not moving. There's another folder. One I didn't bring today. If anything happens to me, it goes to the federal authorities and every major news outlet in the country. The guards hesitated, looking to their boss for instruction. Aveline's jaw tightened. Let's wait outside, she told them. After they left, she turned back to Liam, her eyes cold. Playing a dangerous game, Mr. Byrne. This isn't a game to me. My daughter is dying, and you think I'd let my brother be harmed? I think you've been lied to by people you trust, and I think deep down you've suspected something was wrong but didn't want to face it. Aveline walked to the window, looking out at the city she had spent her life conquering. The afternoon sun gilded her profile, softening her features for a moment. How advanced is your daughter's condition? She asked, her back still to him. Stage 2, tremors in her hand. Can't hold a crayon steady anymore. She used to love drawing. Something in Aveline's reflection changed. A flash of pain quickly masked. Kellen used to sail, she said softly, as if speaking to herself. Now he can barely hold a glass without help. She turned back to face Liam. You're asking me to believe that my chief medical researcher, someone I've known for 15 years, is conducting fraudulent experiments on my brother? Yes, why would he do that? Money. The Langford Initiative has received over $1 billion in private funding. If he can claim a breakthrough, even a false one, the patents alone would be worth billions more. Aveline took a deep breath. You understand that if you're wrong about this, I will destroy you. I'm not wrong. She studied him. This janitor in his faded blue uniform standing in her pristine executive suite like he belonged there. There was something in his eyes, not just desperation, but certainty. Sit down, Mr. Byrne, she finally said, gesturing to one of the chairs at the conference table. Liam sat, his back straight, hands resting on his knees. Aveline pressed the intercom again. Graves, come in, please. Alone. A moment later, a tall man with close-cropped gray hair and the watchful eyes of a career security professional entered the room. Ma'am, I need you to run a complete background check on Liam Byrne. Everything, employment history, financials, personal life. I want to know what he eats for breakfast, and I need his daughter's medical records. The complete file, not a summary. Have our legal department requested directly from neurology at St. Jude's. Yes, ma'am, Graves said, his face impassive. How urgent? I want it within the hour. Graves nodded and left without another word. Now, Mr. Byrne, Aveline said, turning back to Liam, you're going to tell me everything. How you found these documents, what else you know, and why I should believe a word you're saying. Liam leaned forward. It started 3 months ago. I was emptying the trash in the research wing on level 27. Most of the offices were empty. It was nearly midnight, but there was a light on in Dr. Finch's suite. Single quotes. As Liam spoke, Aveline listened with growing concern. The janitor's story was detailed, specific, and troublingly plausible. He described late nights piecing together shredded documents, overhearing hushed phone calls, noting patterns and lab access logs that pointed to activity that shouldn't exist. The final piece, he said, was when I accessed Dr. Finch's private server. Aveline's eyebrows rose. You hacked into our systems? No. I used his password, Prometheus 1821. It's taped under his keyboard. Most people think the cleaning staff can't read. Despite herself, Aveline almost smiled. And what did you find on this server? Email correspondence with someone named Corbin Vance, a biochemist who lost his license 5 years ago for falsifying clinical trial data. They've been working together, manipulating the results to show improvement when the actual numbers showed deterioration. Aveline's expression hardened. If what you're saying is true, it is. Then why come to me? Why not go directly to the authorities? Liam hesitated. Because I need your help. The authorities would take months to investigate, and my daughter doesn't have months. Because despite everything, you have resources I don't. And because... single quotes, he paused, meeting her eyes. I think you're as much a victim in this as Kellen. Something shifted in Aveline's demeanor. Before she could respond, the door opened and Graves returned, tablet in hand. The preliminary background check is complete, ma'am, he said, handing her the device. Aveline scrolled through the information, her expression unreadable. Finally, she looked up at Liam. Your daughter's medical records confirm the diagnosis. Neurosynaptic decay syndrome, stage 2, aggressive progression. She set the tablet down. I'm sorry. Liam nodded, a tight knot forming in his throat. The rest of your story checks out as well. Single father, night shift janitor for the past 3 years. No criminal record. No apparent motive beyond what you've stated. She tapped her fingers on the glass table, thinking. Byrne, do you understand the seriousness of what you're alleging? I do, and you're willing to stake your daughter's life on it? I already have. Aveline stood, decision made. Graves, I need the jet ready in 30 minutes. And get me the security schematics for the North Valley facility. Graves nodded and left to make the arrangements. What are you doing? Liam asked, standing as well. Aveline turned to him, her eyes like steel. We're gonna find out if you're right. Tonight. And if you are, she paused, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, someone is going to pay. The private jet hummed through the darkening sky, its sleek interior a cocoon of luxury that felt alien to Liam. He sat stiffly in a cream-colored leather seat, janitor's uniform an incongruous splash of blue against the aircraft's muted palette. Across from him, Aveline Langford studied data on her tablet, her face illuminated by the cold blue light of the screen. Graves sat beside her, methodically checking a set of compact equipment tier pieces, tactical flashlights, and what looked like electronic lock bypasses. The silence in the cabin was heavy with unspoken tension. Liam stared out the window at the fading sunset, thinking of Maya. He'd called Mrs. Henderson next door before they left, asking her to watch his daughter for the night, inventing a story about an emergency cleaning job. Maya had been disappointed. He'd promised to help with her science project, but she'd understood. She always understood, carrying burdens no 7-year-old should have to bear. Tell me about her, Aveline said, suddenly breaking the silence. Liam turned from the window. Who? Maya, she clarified. Your daughter. You're risking everything for her. I want to understand why. Liam's throat tightened. He wasn't prepared for personal questions, especially not from Aveline Langford. She's bright, he began hesitantly. Funny, asks a million questions. Her favorite color is yellow. The color of the sun right when it wakes up, she says. A small smile crossed his face. She wants to be an astronomer someday. Discover a new star and name it after her mom. Your wife? Aveline asked quietly. She died when Maya was 3, cancer. The words were simple, factual, but they carried the weight of years of grief. Aveline nodded, absorbing this. My brother Kellen, she said after a moment, her voice softer than Liam had heard it before. He used to sail. loved the ocean. Said it was the only place where you could feel how big the world was and how small your problems were. She looked down at her hands. The last time we spoke, he told me he just wanted to feel the sun on his face one more time without feeling like he was fading away. In that moment, the vast gulf between them, CEO and janitor, power and powerlessness, seemed to narrow. They were just two people bound by the same cruel disease and its grip on those they loved. The jet began its descent, ending the brief moment of connection. Aveline straightened, resuming her professional demeanor. "We'll approach from the north," she said, "all business now. The facility has minimal security at night. It's not supposed to need it. Official records show only routine monitoring of long-term experiments between midnight and 6 a.m. But we know that's not true," Liam said. "We'll find out." She turned to Graves. "What's our insertion plan?" "The facility has a perimeter fence with electronic monitoring, but the maintenance gate on the northeast side has a standalone keypad system. I can override it." Graves pulled up a schematic on his tablet. "Once inside, we'll enter through the loading dock. Staff access cards will get us into the main building." "And if Dr. Finch is there?" Liam asked. "Then we'll have a conversation," Aveline replied, her tone making it clear the conversation would not be pleasant. The jet touched down on a small private airstrip 30 miles from the North Valley Research Facility. A black SUV with tinted windows was waiting for them on the tarmac. Within minutes, they were speeding down empty country roads under a star-filled sky. Liam watched the silhouettes of trees flash by, trying to calm his racing thoughts. He had spent weeks gathering evidence, building his case, preparing for his confrontation with Aveline, but he hadn't planned beyond that moment. Now he was hurtling toward a high-security research facility with the CEO of Langford Industries and her head of security, about to either expose a massive fraud or make the biggest mistake of his life. If he was wrong, if the documents he'd found had misled him, Maya would lose her best chance at treatment. Aveline would ensure that, but if he was right, ... The thought of what they might find at the facility made his stomach clench. The SUV turned onto a gravel access road, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Graves killed the lights as they approached the perimeter fence. The facility loomed ahead, a sprawling complex of low buildings silhouetted against the night sky. "Stay in the vehicle until I secure the gate," Graves instructed, slipping out silently. Alone with Aveline in the darkened SUV, Liam felt the weight of what they were about to do. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Once we go in, there's no going back." She turned to him, her face half hidden in shadow. "Mr. Byrne, I've spent my entire adult life building Langford Industries. Everything I've done, every acquisition, every expansion, every hard decision, has been for one purpose: to create something powerful enough to save my brother." Her voice was steady but intense. "If Dr. Finch has betrayed that purpose, I need to know, whatever the cost." Outside, the gate slid open silently. Graves reappeared at the driver's window, nodding once. They drove through, the gate closing behind them with a soft click. The loading dock was deserted, bathed in the pale blue glow of security lights. Graves parked in the shadow of a large delivery truck and distributed equipment tier pieces. Small flashlights that strapped to their wrists and access cards. "Standard protocol is for all research staff to clear out by 10, he explained quietly as they approached a side entrance. "Security does rounds every hour on the hour. We have approximately 40 minutes before the next sweep." The access card beeped softly, and the door unlocked. They stepped into a sterile hallway that smelled of disinfectant and recycled air. "Main research labs are on the second floor," Aveline whispered. "Kellen's treatment room is on the third. We should check DR. Finch's office first," Liam suggested. "If he's falsifying data, he'll keep the real results somewhere." They moved silently through the corridors, passing darkened laboratories and empty offices. The facility seemed deserted, yet Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Finch's office was at the end of an executive corridor, the door marked with a simple nameplate: Alistair Finch, M.D., Research Director. Graves made quick work of the electronic lock and they slipped inside. The office was spacious and meticulously organized. Awards and diplomas lined the walls and a large desk dominated the room, its surface bare except for a computer terminal and a framed photograph of Finch shaking hands with Aveline at some corporate function. Aveline went straight to the computer, while Graves began systematically checking for hidden compartments or safes. Liam examined the bookshelves, looking for anything out of place. "It's password protected," Aveline said, frowning at the login screen. "Try Prometheus 18-1, Liam suggested. Remembering the password he'd seen taped under Finch's keyboard in his other office, Aveline typed it in. The screen remained locked. "Doesn't work." Liam scanned the room again, his janitor's instincts kicking in. People were creatures of habit. They kept important things close, visible but disguised. His eyes landed on a small sculpture on a side table, a miniature of the human brain cast in bronze. It seemed slightly askew on its base. "There," he said, moving toward it. He carefully lifted the sculpture, revealing a small key underneath. "Good eye," Graves murmured, taking the key and examining it. "This isn't for a door." He looked around the room, gaze settling on a painting behind the desk, an abstract rendering of neural pathways in blues and golds. "There." He removed the painting, revealing a wall safe with a key slot and digital keypad. Using the key and trying the same password, Prometheus1821. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single external hard drive and a leather-bound journal. Aveline took the journal and began flipping through it, her expression darkening with each page. "These are the real trial results," she said, her voice tight with anger. "The mortality rates, the side effects, everything Liam said was true. Finch has been deliberately administering increasing doses despite clear evidence of neurotoxicity." She handed the journal to Liam, who scanned the entries with growing horror. The clinical language couldn't disguise the truth. The treatment was killing its subjects faster than the disease itself. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a recent entry. "Patient KL shows significant deterioration following Protocol 7. Cognitive function declining at accelerated rate. Recommend final phase implementation before further degradation renders data collection impossible. KL," Aveline whispered. Kellen Langford, her face had gone deathly pale. "Final phase? What is that?" Liam flipped to the last written page, dated just 2 days earlier. His blood ran cold as he read the entry aloud. "Preparations complete for asset liquidation post-data collection. Transport scheduled for 2 a.m. October 2nd. All evidence to be sanitized following extraction of viable tissue samples." Aveline stared at him, horror dawning in her eyes. "Asset liquidation? That's tomorrow night. I don't think he's talking about financial assets," Liam said grimly. Graves checked his watch. "Ma'am, we need to move. Now." As if in response to his words, a distant alarm began to wail. Red emergency lights flashed in the hallway outside the office. "Someone knows we're here," Graves said, drawing his weapon. "We need to get to the 3rd floor." Now, the quiet investigation had just become a race against time and whatever. "Final phase, Doctor." Finch had planned for Kellen Langford. Red emergency lights transformed the sterile corridors into a pulsing crimson labyrinth. The alarm's wail echoed through the facility, bouncing off the walls and drilling into Liam's skull. Graves led them through the maze of hallways, his movements precise and economical, the weapon in his hand an extension of his arm. "3rd floor access is this way," he said, voice barely audible above the alarm. "The main elevators will be locked down. We'll have to take the service stairs." Liam followed, his janitor's uniform now feeling like a target painted on his back. The journal's words echoed in his mind. Asset liquidation, viable tissue samples, the clinical euphemisms for what amounted to murder. They rounded a corner and froze. 2 security guards in tactical gear were moving toward them, weapons drawn. Before they could shout a warning, Graves moved with shocking speed. He discharged a small device that emitted a bright flash and a sharp crack. The guards dropped, stunned but alive. "Non-lethal," Graves explained tersely, binding their hands with zip ties. "But it won't keep them down long." They reached the stairwell and began climbing. Aveline moved with surprising agility for someone in tailored slacks and Italian leather shoes. Her face was a mask of controlled fury, her eyes focused on some middle distance that Liam suspected contained visions of Dr. Finch's demise. "If they've triggered a full security alert, they'll be moving Kellen," she said between breaths as they climbed. "Standard protocols to secure all research subjects in the event of a breach." "Which means?" Liam asked. "They'll take him to the isolation ward in the east. It has its own power supply security system. An exit route." The 3rd floor door opened onto a corridor that branched in 2 directions. The right path led to the patient treatment rooms where Kellen would normally be kept. The left led to the isolation ward. "This way," Aveline said, turning left. They moved quickly, checking rooms as they passed. Most were empty, filled with sophisticated medical equipment lying dormant. The alarm continued to blare, but the floor seemed deserted. "Something's not right," Graves murmured. "Where is everyone?" Liam felt it too. The eerie emptiness where there should have been panicked staff, security personnel, researchers responding to the alarm. They reached a set of heavy double doors marked Isolation Ward, authorized personnel only. Graves tried his security bypass on the electronic lock, but the light remained stubbornly red. "They've changed the protocols," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "This is a different system." Liam studied the doors, thinking. His eyes traced the outline of the frame, the hinges, the electronic panel. After 3 years as a janitor at Langford Industries, he knew how buildings worked, the systems that kept them running, the back doors that maintenance staff used to get around security protocols that would otherwise make their jobs impossible. "The maintenance bypass," he said suddenly. "Look for an access panel near the floor." Aveline dropped to her knees, running her hands along the baseboard. "Here," she said, finding a small, almost invisible seam. Liam knelt beside her, pressing the panel in a specific sequence. Top right, bottom left, center. It popped open, revealing a manual override handle. "In old buildings, they always put in mechanical backups," he explained. "Fire codes. If the power fails, people need to be able to get out." He pulled the lever down with a grunt of effort. The magnetic locks disengaged with a heavy clunk. Graves pushed the doors open, weapon raised, and they entered the isolation ward. The contrast was immediate. While the rest of the facility had been plunged into flashing red emergency lighting, the isolation ward was bathed in harsh white fluorescent light. The alarm was muted here, a distant wail rather than an assault on their eardrums. The ward consisted of a central nurses' station surrounded by 6 patient rooms with glass walls. 5 were empty. In the 6th, a figure lay on a hospital bed connected to a bewildering array of monitors in 4 lines. "Kellen," Aveline whispered, rushing to the glass. Her brother was barely recognizable as the sailing enthusiast from the photographs in her office. His body was gaunt, his skin waxy and pale, his hair once thick and dark like his sister's reduced to sparse patches. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and mechanical, assisted by a ventilator. Liam saw the devastation on Aveline's face, the raw, unfiltered pain that no amount of corporate power or wealth could shield her from. It was the same pain he felt every time he noticed a new tremor in Maya's hands, a new struggle as she tried to do things that had once been effortless. Graves checked the monitoring equipment. He's heavily sedated, but his vitals are stable. He examined the 4 bags, standard saline and glucose. Nothing unusual. Liam frowned, scanning the room. Something didn't add up. If they were planning to move him, why is he still here? Before anyone could answer, a voice came from speakers hidden in the ceiling. An excellent question, Mr. Byrne. They spun around. On a large monitor above the nurse's station, Dr. Alistair Finch's face appeared, his expression one of mild disappointment, as if catching students cheating on an exam. Ms. Langford, he continued, his voice smooth and cultured. I must say, I'm rather surprised to find you here at this hour, and in such unusual company. His eyes flicked to Liam's janitor uniform with undisguised disdain. Finch, Aveline said, her voice like ice. What have you done to my brother? Done to him? Finch's eyebrows rose in a pantomime of surprise. My dear Ems, Langford, I've been trying to save him, just as we agreed. We found your journal. Liam cut in. The real trial results. We know the treatment is killing him. Single quotes. Finch's smile tightened. Ah, the janitor speaks. How charming. I don't believe we've been properly introduced. Although I recognize you from the night shift. His gaze shifted to Aveline. Is this what it's come to, Aveline? Breaking into your own facility based on the ramblings of a cleaning man? The journal. Alistair, Aveline said, her voice steady despite the anger radiating from her. Explain the journal. Finch sighed. A theatrical gesture of a man greatly put upon. Scientific research is complex, Aveline, particularly when dealing with something as devastating as NDS. There are setbacks, failed approaches, difficult decisions that must be made in service of the greater goal. Asset liquidation, Liam said flatly. Viable tissue samples. Those aren't setbacks, Doctor. Those are murder. Such a dramatic interpretation, Finch said, his tone hardening, but perhaps understandable from someone with your limited perspective. The reality is much more nuanced than explain it, Aveline demanded. Make me understand why my brother's dying while you've been telling me he's improving. Finch leaned forward, his face filling more of the screen. Because hope was the only thing keeping you funding the research, Aveline. The unfortunate truth is that your brother was never going to be saved by our current approach, but his participation, his sacrifices, paving the way for a breakthrough that will save countless others, including my daughter, Liam asked, unable to keep the bitter edge from his voice. Ah, Finch's eyes gleamed with sudden interest. So that's why you're here. You have a child with NDS. How fascinating. He tapped something off screen. Maya Byrne, is it age 7, diagnosed 6 months ago? Yes, I see her file now. Stage 2, aggressive progression. A textbook case. The casual way Finch accessed his daughter's information made Liam's blood run cold. Leave her out of this. But she's the reason you're here, isn't she? Hope is a powerful motivator, Mr. Byrne. It's why Langford has poured billions into my research. It's why you broke into this facility tonight. We all want the same thing, a cure. I'm simply being realistic about the cost of being a monster, Aveline said. And you're finished. The FBI will be here by morning. Every document, every piece of data will be seized. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Finch's expression didn't change, but something cold and calculating entered his eyes. I think not, Miss Langford. You see, officially, none of this exists. The Langford Initiative is a black box project funded through a maze of shell companies and offshore accounts, all created at your instruction, I might add. There is no paper trail connecting me to any wrongdoing. There is, however, abundant evidence of your direct oversight. He smiled thinly. Who do you think the authorities will believe? The respected researcher with decades of peer-reviewed publications, or the desperate billionaire who created an underground experimental program to save her brother, breaking every ethical guideline and regulatory statute in the process? The blood drained from Aveline's face as she realized the trap she had unwittingly created for herself. Of course, Finch continued, this unfortunate confrontation doesn't have to end with mutual destruction. I'm willing to be reasonable. What do you want? Aveline asked, her voice hollow. The same thing. I've always wanted to complete my research. Transfer the remaining funds, all of them, to the designated accounts by morning, and this unpleasantness can be forgotten. You can even take your brother. His usefulness of the project has reached its natural conclusion. Liam saw the calculation in Aveline's eyes, the desperate sister weighing her brother's immediate survival against the researcher's continued freedom and the destruction of her own reputation. And my daughter? Liam asked, stepping forward. What about her? Finch regarded him with cool appraisal. Bring her to me, Mr. Byrne. With the additional funding, I could include her in the next phase of trials. No guarantees, of course, but it would be her best chance. A heavy silence filled the isolation ward. The offer hung in the air between them, poisonous, tempting, impossible. The silence in the isolation ward stretched like a wire pulled taut, ready to snap. Liam stared at Finch's face on the monitor, searching for some hint of humanity, some crack in the clinical detachment. There was none. No, Liam said, his voice quiet but firm. Finch's eyebrows rose slightly. I'm sorry? I said no. Liam stepped closer to the screen, standing shoulder to shoulder with Aveline. I won't bring my daughter to you. Ms. Langford won't be transferring any more funds. Finch's practiced smile faltered. Mr. Byrne, perhaps I wasn't clear. This is your daughter's best chance or only chance. The standard treatments for NDS are palliative at best. They will not save her. Neither will you, Liam replied, his voice gaining strength. Your research isn't about finding a cure. It's about prolonging suffering to extract data. You're not trying to save lives. You're using them as raw material. He turned to Aveline, whose face was a battlefield of conflicting emotions, rage, fear, desperation. He never intended to cure Kellen, Liam said softly, or Maya, or anyone. He's been stringing you along, using your brother as a laboratory specimen while collecting a fortune in research grants. Finch's voice hardened. That's an absurdly simplistic interpretation of it's the truth, Liam cut in. And you know it. He turned back to the screen. I saw the numbers. The pattern is clear. Every breakthrough in your reports coincided with an increase in dosage, temporarily masking the deterioration before accelerating. You weren't treating Kellen's disease. You were weaponizing it. Aveline's eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. Years of hope and billions of dollars, all feeding a monstrous deception. You're making a grave mistake, Finch said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. Both of you. His gaze shifted to Graves, who had remained vigilant, scanning entrances and keeping watch. And you, Mr. Graves, I'm surprised. Your loyalty to Ms. Langford is admirable, but surely a man with your background understands the importance of backing the winning side. Graves didn't respond, his expression impassive. Last chance, Finch continued. The funds transfer by morning, or I release everything. The offshore accounts, the regulatory violations, the unauthorized human trials. Langford Industries will be finished, and you, Aveline, will face criminal charges. As for you, Mr. Byrne, single quotes, he paused, his lips curling into a thin smile. Well, without proper treatment, we both know what awaits your daughter. Aveline stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the screen. You're right about one thing, Alistair. This is your last chance. Her voice was unnervingly calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Release my brother's full medical records to me now. Surrender all your research data. Resign from Langford Industries effective immediately. Do these things and you might avoid spending the rest of your life in prison. Finch's face hardened. You have no leverage, Aveline. None whatsoever. Don't I? She held up her phone, displaying a blinking red icon. This conversation is being live-streamed to my private server with copies routing to the FBI, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the offices of 3 separate district attorneys. Even as we speak, a forensic team is combing through every digital footprint of the Langford Initiative. Liam watched in amazement as the color drained from Finch's face. You're bluffing, he said, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Am I? Aveline's smile was cold. Did you really think I would confront you without insurance? I've been building this company since I was 23. I've faced down hostile takeovers, industrial espionage, and corporate saboteurs. Did you honestly believe I would place my brother's life and my entire legacy in the hands of one man without safeguards? For the first time, Finch looked rattled. His eyes darted to something off-screen, his fingers tapping nervously on his desk. Even if what you say is true, he recovered, his voice tighter than before. My research is still years ahead of anyone else's. You need me. No, Aveline said flatly. I needed to believe in you. There's a difference. She turned to Graves. Get Kellen ready to move. We're taking him out of here. Graves nodded and moved to the hospital room door, swiping an access card. It beeped red, denying entry. On the screen, Finch's confidence returned. I'm afraid that won't be possible. The isolation ward is in full lockdown. Only I can authorize access to patient rooms, and I'm not in a generous mood. His gaze shifted to something off-screen again. In fact, my security team will be with you shortly. I suggest you use the time to reconsider my offer. Liam watched Aveline's face, expecting anger or panic. Instead, he saw something unexpected. Calculation. 30 seconds, she said quietly to Graves. He nodded and moved to a wall panel, prying it open with a small tool from his pocket. What are you doing? Liam asked. Creating a diversion, Aveline replied, her eyes still on Finch's face. And testing a theory. On the screen, Finch leaned forward. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. The isolation ward is designed to be impenetrable, even in the event of a facility-wide emergency. That includes power outages, fire alarms, even biohazard containment protocols. Aveline finished for him. Yes, I know. I designed the security system, but you modified it, didn't you, Alistair? Major little improvements? Finch's eyes narrowed. Of course. The standard protocols were insufficient for our work, and in doing so, you created a backdoor, a way to override the system in an emergency. She smiled, a predator's smile. Your emergency, not mine. Graves had exposed a complex panel of wires and circuit boards. He connected a small device from his pocket, and the panel lit up with a series of green lights. What happens in a Class 4 biohazard event, Alistair? Aveline asked, her tone almost conversational. Finch's expression froze. You wouldn't dare. The entire facility would be quarantined. Everything locked down, everything except the isolation ward, Aveline corrected, because you needed to ensure you could remove assets quickly if necessary. A private exit protocol bypassing all the normal security measures. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Finch's face. Aveline, think about what you're doing. If you trigger a Class 4 alert, federal authorities will swarm this place. Everything we've built will be exposed. That's the plan. She nodded to Graves, who pressed a sequence of buttons on his device. Instantly, a new alarm began to sound, deeper, more urgent than the previous one. Strobe lights flashed and heavy metal shutters began to descend over the windows. Facility-wide biohazard containment protocol initiated, announced an automated voice over the PA system. All personnel evacuate immediately. Repeat, all personnel evacuate immediately. On the screen, Finch was shouting, but the audio had cut out. He slammed his fist on his desk before the monitor went black. 3 minutes, Graves said, moving to Kellen's room. The door slid open smoothly now. The lockdown protocol's overridden. That's how long before the automated system seal the building and alert the CDC. Liam helped disconnect Kellen from the non-essential monitors, while Aveline checked the portable life support equipment. Will he survive being moved? Liam asked, looking at the frail figure on the bed. He has to, Aveline replied, her voice tight. She smoothed the hand over her brother's forehead. I'm here, Kellen. I'm getting you out. Graves returned with a gurney, and together they carefully transferred Kellen, securing the 4 bags and ventilator to the portable unit. The emergency exit is this way, Aveline said, pointing down a corridor that had been hidden behind a panel that had slid open during the biohazard alert. It leads directly to the loading dock. They moved quickly, Graves pushing the gurney while Liam and Aveline ensured none of the life-sustaining equipment was disturbed. The corridor was narrow, clearly designed for just this purpose, the rapid removal of assets during an emergency. Finch will be headed for the same exit, Liam warned as they hurried along. I'm counting on it, Aveline replied, her face set with grim determination. They emerged into the loading dock just as another door burst open on the far side. Doctor, Finch appeared, flanked by 2 security guards in tactical gear. He froze when he saw them, his face contorting with fury. Stop them, he shouted, pointing at Kellen's gurney. The guards hesitated, looking from Finch to Aveline, uncertain whose orders to follow. Stand down, Aveline commanded, her voice carrying the full weight of her authority. I am Aveline Langford, CEO of Langford Industries. This facility and everyone in it answers to me. One guard lowered his weapon slightly. The other remained poised, looking to Finch for direction. She has no authority here, Finch snapped. This is a security breach. They're stealing proprietary research assets. That asset is my brother, Aveline retorted, stepping in front of the gurney protectively. And you were planning to kill him. The uncertainty in the guards' faces deepened. I can pay you 10 times whatever she's paying you, Finch said desperately to the guards. Just stop them from leaving. The moment hung in the balance, weapons raised, lives in the hands of men who were simply following orders, uncertain which master to serve. Time seemed to freeze in the loading dock as the guards weighed their option, weapons still trained on the group. Liam's heart hammered against his ribs. He positioned himself slightly in front of Kellen's gurney, knowing it was a futile gesture against bullets, but unable to stop himself. 2 minutes until full lockdown, Graves murmured, his voice low and urgent. The automated voice confirmed over the PA system. Biohazard containment protocol. T-minus 120 seconds. All exits will be sealed. Evacuation procedures must be completed immediately. One of the guards, younger, with a nervous twitch in his jaw, lowered his weapon slightly. Dr. Finch, we should evacuate. Protocol says I don't care what protocol says, Finch snapped, his carefully cultivated demeanor cracking. They're stealing years of research. Stop them. The older guard kept his weapon raised, eyes cold and calculating. Sorry, Ms. Langford. Orders are orders. Before he could take aim, Graves moved with the fluid precision of a man who had spent decades in security work. A small device slipped from his sleeve into his palm, and with a flick of his wrist, it skittered across the floor, coming to rest between the guards. It detonated with a bright flash and a cloud of dense smoke that filled the loading dock in seconds. Move! Graves shouted, grabbing the gurney and propelling it toward the exit. Liam and Aveline followed, ducking low beneath the spreading smoke. Confusion erupted behind them, shouts, coughing, the sound of someone stumbling into equipment. A single shot rang out, the bullet whining past them to embed itself in a wooden crate. Graves had the exit door open, and they burst through into the cool night air. The facility's exterior was bathed in pulsing red emergency lights. In the distance, sirens wailed. The first responders to the biohazard alert, no doubt. The SUV now, Graves commanded, navigating the gurney down a short ramp toward their waiting vehicle. They had almost reached it when a figure emerged from the smoke behind them, Finch alone, his face contorted with rage and desperation. In his hand was a small pistol, wavering but aimed in their general direction. Stop or I'll shoot, he shouted, his voice cracking with strain. Graves didn't hesitate. He drew his own weapon and fired in one smooth motion. Finch cried out, the bullet grazing his shoulder, and he dropped to one knee, his gun clattering to the pavement. They reached the SUV, and Liam helped Graves secure Kellen's gurney in the modified cargo area, carefully arranging the life support equipment. Aveline climbed in beside her brother, her hand never leaving his. Go, she ordered, and Graves slid into the driver's seat, starting the engine. As they pulled away, Liam looked back. Finch was still on his knees in the loading dock entrance, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. Their eyes met across the distance, the janitor and the doctor, the father and the fraughten in Finch's gaze. Liam saw a promise of vengeance that sent a chill through his body. The SUV sped down the access road, leaving the facility behind just as the lockdown protocol completed. Heavy steel shutters sealed every entrance, trapping anyone still inside in a quarantine that would last until authorities confirmed there was no actual biohazard. "He'll come after us," Liam said, breaking the tense silence in the vehicle. "Let him try," Aveline replied, her voice like steel. She looked down at her brother, gently brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "We need to get Kellen to a secure medical facility, somewhere Finch can't reach. I've arranged for a medical transport at the airfield," Graves said from the driver's seat. "The jet is fueled and waiting. We'll be in the air within 20 minutes. Aveline nodded, her focus never leaving her brother's face. In the harsh glow of the monitoring equipment, she looked both powerful and vulnerable. The billionaire CEO reduced to a sister keeping vigil. "What about Maya?" Liam asked suddenly, the reality of their situation crashing down on him. "If Finch knows about her, he won't get near her," Aveline interrupted. She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I promise you that. As soon as we're airborne, I'll have a security team at your home. Maya will be protected." Liam wanted to believe her, but the fear for his daughter had taken root, spreading like poison through his veins. "Finch has resources, connection. If he wants to find her, Liam," Aveline said, using his first name for the first time. "I understand your fear. Believe me, I do. But Finch's world is collapsing around him. By morning, his access to Langford resource cut off. His reputation will be in tatters. His research will be exposed as fraud. He'll be running for his life, not hunt her daughter." The SUV turned onto the main highway, accelerating toward the distant lights of the private airfield. "And if you're wrong?" Liam asked quietly. Aveline held his gaze, unflinching. "Then we'll destroy him completely." There was no hesitation in her voice, no uncertainty. It was a declaration of war, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Liam felt something close to hope. They reached the airfield 20 minutes later. As promised, a medical transport was waiting. A converted helicopter equipped with advanced life support system. A medical team in Langford Industries uniforms stood ready. As they transferred Kellen from the SUV to the helicopter, one of the medical staff approached Aveline. "Ms. Langford, we've prepared the containment pod as requested," she said, gesturing to a sophisticated medical capsule inside the helicopter. Aveline nodded. "What's his status?" "Stable but critical," the doctor replied. "The sedation is wearing off. We've administered a mild stimulant to counteract it. As you requested, he should regain consciousness within the hour." "Thank you, Dr. Chun. You'll accompany us to the Langford Medical Center." "Of course." Liam watched the efficient choreography of wealth and power with a mixture of awe and unease. In less than an hour, Aveline had mobilized resources that would have taken government agencies days to assemble. It was a stark reminder of the vast gulf between their worlds. Once Kellen was secured in the helicopter, Aveline turned to Liam. "There's room for one more," she said. "You should come with us, Dot." Single quotes, Liam hesitated. "Maya is being picked up by a security team as we speak," Graves said, checking his phone. "Mrs. Henderson has been informed of the situation. They'll bring Maya to the Langford Medical Center." The offer was tempting to stay with Aveline to see this through to the end, to be reunited with Maya in a place of safety. But something held him back. "I need to go home," he said. "I need to be there when they pick her up. She'll be scared." Understanding flickered in Aveline's eyes. "Of course," she gestured to Graves. "Take him home. Then join us at the medical center." Graves nodded, his expression unchanged, but something like respect in his eyes as he looked at Liam. Aveline stepped closer to Liam, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Thank you," she said simply, "for having the courage to come to me with the truth, for helping me save Kellen." Liam nodded, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "You'll keep me updated? About your brother?" "I will." She hesitated, then added, "And about the research, Dr. Chun is legitimate. She's been reviewing Finch's data already, separating the real science from the fraud. If there's a path forward, a real treatment for NDS, we'll find it. I know you will." Aveline extended her hand and Liam took it. A simple gesture, bridging worlds that should never have intersected. She turned and climbed into the helicopter. The rotors began to spin, kicking up dust and creating a miniature whirlwind on the tarmac. Liam and Graves stepped back, watching as the aircraft lifted off, banking sharply before heading east toward the Langford Medical Center. The drive back to the city was silent, both men lost in their thoughts. The adrenaline of the night was wearing off, leaving Liam exhausted to his bones. But his mind wouldn't quiet, replaying the confrontation with Finch, the desperate escape, the promise of vengeance in the doctor's eyes. They were 10 minutes from Liam's apartment when Graves's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "What is it?" Liam asked, instantly alert. "Change of plans," Graves said, his voice carefully neutral as he made a sudden turn, heading in a new direction. "We need to make a stop first." "What kind of stop?" "Where's Maya?" "She's safe," Graves replied, but something in his tone set alarm bells ringing in Liam's head. "There's been a development. We need to meet someone." "Who?" Graves didn't answer, accelerating onto the highway heading out of the city in the opposite direction from both Liam's apartment and the Langford Medical Center. Fear, cold and visceral, crept up Liam's spine. "Graves," he said, his voice hardening. "Where are we going?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Byrne," Graves said, and for the first time there was genuine regret in his voice. "But there's been a change in Langford's instruction." The SUV sped through the night, carrying Liam away from his daughter, away from safety and toward a destination unknown. In the passing headlights, he caught a glimpse of Graves' expression in the rearview mirror. Resolve. Professional, but with the unmistakable weight of a man following orders he didn't fully agree with. Betrayal. It was a taste like copper in Liam's mouth, bitter and familiar. The SUV cut through the darkness, each mile taking Liam further from Maya. The highway had given way to a narrow country road, trees pressing close on either side, their shadows dancing in the headlights. Liam's mind raced through possibilities, each more dire than the last. Working for Finch, he said finally, the accusation hanging in the air between them. Graves' expression didn't change. No, then what is this? Where are you taking me? To someone who can help. Graves checked his mirrors, his movements precise and controlled. We're being followed. Have been since we left the airfield. Liam twisted in his seat, peering through the rear window. The road behind them appeared empty. Just darkness and the fading red of their taillights. I don't see anything. Black sedan running dark. They're good, staying just at the edge of visual range. Graves took a sharp turn onto an even smaller road. Finch's people, most likely. Or someone else who doesn't want the Langford initiative exposed. What about Maya? Fear clawed at Liam's throat. You said she was being picked up by a security team. She is, but the team doesn't work for M's. Langford. Cold dread pooled in Liam's stomach. What are you saying? Graves glanced at him, his eyes revealing nothing. Miss Langford isn't the only one with resources. Mr. Byrne, or interest in NDS research. The SUV slowed as they approached what appeared to be an abandoned gas station, its weathered sign barely visible in the gloom. Graves pulled around to the back, cutting the headlights but leaving the engine running. Get out, he said, his hand moving to the weapon at his side, quickly and quietly. Every instinct screamed at Liam to run, but where would he go? Miles from the city, in the middle of nowhere, with people following them, his options were limited. And Maya, wherever she was, whatever was happening, his only chance of reaching her was through Graves. He stepped out of the SUV, the cool night air raising goosebumps on his skin. Graves joined him, scanning their surroundings with practiced efficiency. This way, he said, leading Liam toward a rusted door at the back of the gas station. He entered a code on a keypad hidden beneath a peeling promotional sticker, and the door unlocked with a soft click. Inside was nothing like the decrepit exterior suggested. The space had been converted into a small but sophisticated command center monitors displaying security feeds, communications equipment, and in the center a table with maps and documents spread across it. A woman stood at the table, studying the papers intently. She looked up as they entered, her sharp gaze assessing Liam before turning to Graves. You weren't followed? She asked, her voice crisp and authoritative. We were, Graves replied. Lost them 3 miles back. She nodded, apparently satisfied, and turned her attention to Liam. Mr. Byrne, I'm Director Evans, FBI. Welcome to our makeshift field office. Liam stared at her, trying to process this latest twist. FBI? I don't understand. Clearly, she said, gesturing for him to sit. Let me clarify the situation. We've been investigating the Langford initiative for 14 months. Unauthorized human trials, financial fraud, corporate espionage. The list of potential charges is extensive. You're after Aveline, Liam said, the pieces beginning to fit together in his mind. And Graves works for you, not her. Graves remained by the door, his expression neutral. I work for Langford Industries as chief of security. My loyalty is to the company, not any individual, even if that individual is the CEO. Especially then, Graves replied. When the CEO's actions threaten the entire organization, Director Evans leaned forward, resting her palms on the table. Mr. Byrne, we need to know exactly what happened. Everything you saw, everyone you spoke with, particularly Dr. Finch. Liam's thoughts turned to Maya again, worry gnawing at his insides. My daughter is safe, Evans assured him. We have agents with her at your apartment. Mrs. Henderson is with her as well. She thinks you're working late. Relief washed over Liam, so powerful it made him lightheaded. Prove it, he demanded. Let me talk to her. Evans nodded to an agent in the corner who brought over a tablet. A few taps later, a video feed appeared showing Maya's bedroom. His daughter was sleeping peacefully, her favorite stuffed giraffe clutched to her chest. The time stamp in the corner showed it was current. Why all this? Liam asked, looking from Evans to Graves. Why not just arrest Finch and Aveline if you think she's involved? Because we need to understand the full scope of the operation, Evans explained. The Langford initiative isn't just about one rogue researcher. It's connected to a larger network of illegal medical trials across multiple countries. We need to unravel the entire web. And you think I can help with that? You already have, Evans said, sliding a folder across the table to him. Your discovery of the true nature of Finch's research provided the breakthrough we needed. But there's more to this story than even you realize. Liam opened the folder cautiously. Inside were surveillance photos of Dr. Finch meeting with various individual locations, hotel lobby, private airfields, secluded restaurants. Dates and times were meticulously noted on each image. Finch has been selling data and methodologies to the highest bidder, Evans explained. Military contractors, foreign governments, private research firms with questionable ethics. The treatment he developed isn't meant to cure NDS. It's meant to weaponize it. Liam's blood ran cold. Weaponize? How? By accelerating the neurological breakdown in targeted individuals while making it appear natural. An untraceable method of assassination that mimics a known disease. Evans's voice was matter-of-fact, but her eyes reflected disgust. Your daughter's condition, and Kellen. Langford's was never going to be improved by Finch's research because that was never the goal. The horrific implications crashed over Liam like a wave. He thought of Maya's trembling hands, of Kellen's wasted form on the hospital bed, of all the other victims of this monstrous scheme. And Aveline? He asked, dreading the answer. Is she part of this? Evans and Graves exchanged a look that Liam couldn't interpret. That's where things get complicated, Evans said carefully. We've been tracking Langford's involvement for months. The evidence suggests she was funding the research, but may not have been aware of its true purpose. The question is, what does she know now after tonight? Liam thought back to their confrontation with Finch, to Aveline's shock and rage when she learned the truth about her brother's treatment. It hadn't seemed feigned. I don't think she knew, he said slowly. When we found Finch's journal, when we confronted him, her reaction was genuine. She thought she was funding a cure. Evans nodded, absorbing this. And now she has her brother and all of Finch's research to find a real cure, Liam insisted. Perhaps, Evans conceded, or to bury the evidence and protect herself from prosecution. Aveline Langford didn't build a corporate empire by being sentimental, Mr. Byrne. She's ruthless, calculating, and extraordinarily well-connected. The words stung because they echoed Liam's own doubts. He had seen both sides of Aveline tonight, the desperate sister willing to risk everything for her brother, and the cold-blooded CEO who could trigger a biohazard alert and threaten to destroy a man without hesitation. What happens now? He asked. Now we wait, Evans replied, and watch. The next 24 hours will tell us a great deal about Miss Langford's true intentions. She checked her watch. Finch is likely already on the move. Our agents at the research facility report that he managed to evade the quarantine protocols and disappear before local authorities arrive. He's running, Graves said from his position by the door. Yes, but not empty-handed, Evans clarified. Our sources indicate he took multiple hard drives and physical samples with him. The question is where he's going and who he's meeting. A thought struck Liam with sudden, terrifying clarity. Maya, he said, rising from his chair. If Finch is running, if he knows the FBI is closing in, my daughter could be a target, a loose end. Evans's expression softened slightly. That's why we have agents with her, Mr. Byrne. We've considered that possibility. I need to be with her, Liam insisted. Now. And you will be, Evans assured him. But first, we need to debrief you properly. Everything you saw at the facility, every conversation with Finch and Langford, it could be crucial to stopping Finch before he disappears with his research. Liam knew she was right, but every minute away from Maya felt like torture. He sat back down reluctantly. 1 hour, he said, then I go to my daughter, with or without your help. Evans nodded. 1 hour. As Liam began recounting the night's events in detail, his mind kept returning to Aveline Langford. Had he misjudged her? Was she truly innocent of Finch's crimes, or was she playing a deeper game? And what would she do now that she had her brother back and knew the FBI was investigating? Somewhere in the night, Aveline was flying toward the Langford Medical Center with Kellen and all of Finch's research. The question that nagged at Liam was simple but devastating. When she landed, would she use that research to find a cure for NDS? A cure that could save Maya, or would she destroy it to protect herself? The answer might determine whether his daughter lived or died. Dawn was breaking over the city when Graves's SUV pulled up outside Liam's apartment building. The debriefing with Director Evans had stretched well beyond the promised hour. Each detail of the night's events meticulously documented and analyzed. Liam was exhausted, his body aching and his mind numb, but the thought of seeing Maya kept him going. We'll maintain surveillance, Graves said as Liam reached for the door handle. 2 agents in the apartment across the hall, another team in a vehicle outside. You won't see them, but they'll be there. Liam nodded, too drained for words. As he stepped out of the SUV, Graves called after him. Byrne. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. For what it's worth, I believe Miss Langford didn't know about Finch's true agenda, but that doesn't mean she won't protect herself now that she does. The warning hung in the air between them. Liam closed the door without responding and made his way into the building. His apartment was on the 3rd floor, modest but clean, with Maya's artwork adorning every available wall space. He unlocked the door quietly, not wanting to wake her if she was still sleeping. Mrs. Henderson was dozing on the couch, a kind-faced woman in her 60s who had been a godsend since Maya's diagnosis. She startled awake as he entered, relief flooding her features. Liam, thank goodness, she whispered, rising to greet him. Those men said you were working, but they wouldn't let me call you. I'm sorry for the worry, he said, embracing her briefly. It's been a complicated night. How's Maya? Sleeping like an angel. She did her homework, ate all her dinner, and drew you a new picture. Mrs. Henderson smiled, the lines around her eyes crinkling. She said it was a special surprise for when you got home. Liam felt a pang of guilt. While he'd been breaking into research facilities and uncovering conspiracies, Maya had been here, waiting for him, creating art with her trembling hands. "Thank you for staying with her," he said, walking Mrs. Henderson to the door. "I don't know what we'd do without you." "Nonsense. That child is a blessing." She patted his cheek affectionately. "Get some rest. You look like you've been through the ringer." After she left, Liam moved quietly to Maya's bedroom door, pushing it open just enough to see inside. The room was bathed in the soft glow of her moon-shaped nightlight. Maya lay curled on her side, her dark curls splayed across the pillow. One arm wrapped around her stuffed giraffe Leopold, she called him. Her breathing was deep and even, her face peaceful in sleep. Liam leaned against the doorframe watching her. In these quiet moments, it was possible to forget the diagnosis, to imagine that she was just a normal 7-year-old with her whole life ahead of her, that her hands didn't shake when she tried to button her coat, that she didn't sometimes struggle to find the right words for simple things. On her bedside table was the picture Mrs. Henderson had mentioned, a drawing of what appeared to be a castle with a bright yellow sun above it. Beneath the castle were 2 stick figures holding hands. "Daddy in Maya's new home," she had written across the bottom in her increasingly unsteady handwriting. Tears stung Liam's eyes. He wiped them away roughly, turning from the room. He couldn't break down. Not now. Maya needed him strong. In the kitchen, he made coffee, his body moving on autopilot as his mind processed everything he'd learned from Director Evans, the Langford Initiative's true purpose, Finch's network of buyers, the weaponization of NDS. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Secure line established. Call when ready. A. Aveline." How had she gotten his number? But of course she was Aveline Langford. There was probably very little she couldn't access if she wanted to. Liam hesitated, staring at the message. According to Evans, Aveline was now a suspect in an ongoing federal investigation. Contacting her could be seen as obstruction of justice or worse. But she also had Finch's research that might contain the key to saving Maya. He made the call. Aveline answered on the first ring. "Byrne, are you secure?" Her voice was tense. Clipped. "As much as I can be," he replied, keeping his voice low. "How's your brother?" "Stable, conscious, but weak. The doctors are running tests." She paused. "We need to talk. Not over the phone. I'm not leaving Maya. I understand, but this can't wait." Another pause. "I'm sending Dr. Chun to you. She'll be there in 30 minutes. She'll bring everything we've found in Finch's data." Liam's heart skipped a beat. "Is sharing his research? I promise to help your daughter, and I keep my promises. But there's more going on than you realize." "The FBI? I know about the FBI." Liam interrupted. "They found me after Graves took me from the airfield." Silence on the other end, then a soft curse. "Graves. I should have known." Her voice hardened. "What did you tell them?" "Everything about tonight. The break-in, Finch's journal, Kellen's condition. They already knew about the initiative. They've been investigating for months. Did they tell you why?" Liam glanced toward Maya's room, lowering his voice further. "They said Finch was weaponizing NDS, selling the research to military contractors, foreign governments." "Yes," Aveline confirmed, her tone grim. "That's what we've found in his files, but it goes deeper than that." "The FBI isn't just investigating Finch or me, they're investigating themselves." "What are you talking about?" "There's a faction within the federal government that's been funding Finch's research through black budget channels. That's how he's been able to operate so freely, even with my resources behind him. He has protection from inside dots." Single quotes. Liam's mind reeled. Evans didn't mention that. "Of course not, because either she's part of it or she doesn't know herself." Aveline's voice was steady, certain. "Trust Dr. Chun. No one else. Not even me, if it comes to it." The call ended abruptly, leaving Liam staring at his phone. The implications of what Aveline had said were staggering. If she was telling the truth, the conspiracy extended far beyond a rogue researcher and a desperate CEO. But was she telling the truth? Or was this another layer of deception, a desperate attempt to manipulate him now that she knew the FBI was involved? He had 30 minutes to decide whether to trust Dr. Chun when she arrived. 30 minutes to determine if he was putting Maya at risk by allowing Aveline's doctor into their home. He went to the window, scanning the street below. The neighborhood was quiet. Just early morning commuters heading to work. There was no sign of surveillance, but Graves had said he wouldn't see them. They were watching. Waiting. But for what? A movement in Maya's room caught his attention. He turned to find her standing in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes with a small fist. "Daddy?" she said, her voice thick with sleep. "You're home." Liam crossed to her, kneeling to wrap her in a tight embrace. "Hey, sweet pea. Sorry I was gone so long. See, okay?" She mumbled against his shoulder. "Did you fix the big water pipe?" It took him a moment to remember the lie he'd told her on the phone from Aveline's conference room about working late to clean up a burst pipe. It felt like a lifetime ago. "All fixed," he assured her, pulling back to look at her face. "Did you sleep well?" She nodded, then her eyes brightened. "Did you see my picture? It's our castle. When I get better, you said maybe we could live in a house instead of an apartment. So I made us a castle instead." Single quotes. Liam's throat tightened. "Beautiful, Maya. The best castle I've ever seen. The sun makes it yellow because that's my favorite color," she explained seriously. "Yellow is the color of happy." "It sure is." He stood, taking her hand. "How about some breakfast? Pancakes? With blueberry faces? Is there any other kind?" As he made breakfast, trying to maintain a facade of normalcy, Liam watched Maya carefully. Her hands were steady this morning. A good day. She chattered about school, about Leopold's adventures while Liam was at work, about a book Mrs. Henderson had read to her. For a few precious minutes, they were just a father and daughter having breakfast on a normal morning. The buzzing of the apartment intercom shattered the illusion. "Mr. Byrne?" A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "I'm Dr. Chun from Langford Medical." Langford sent. 30 minutes. exactly as promised. Liam hesitated, looking at Maya, who was happily arranging blueberries on her pancake. Maya, honey, can you finish your breakfast in your room? Take Leopold too. I need to talk to a doctor about some grown-up stuff. Maya looked up, her dark eyes suddenly serious. Is it about my hands shaking? The direct question caught him off guard. Yes, he admitted, but it's nothing for you to worry about, okay? Just grown-up talk. She nodded solemnly, gathering her plate and her stuffed giraffe. I'll teach Leopold about pancakes, she said, padding to her room. Once her door was closed, Liam buzzed Dr. Chun in. He positioned himself between the door and Maya's room, ready to protect his daughter at all costs. The woman who entered was not what he expected. Dr. Chun was young early 30s at most, with a no-nonsense bob and sharp, intelligent eyes behind rimless glasses. She carried a small medical case and a laptop bag. Mr. Byrne, she said, offering her hand. I understand you've had a difficult night. Liam didn't take her hand. Prove you are who you say you are. If she was offended by his caution, she didn't show it. Instead, she produced credentials, a Langford Medical Center ID badge, a medical license, and a business card. Ms. Langford said you might be suspicious, she added. She told me to tell you that the castle has a gate to keep the monsters out. The words about her drawing, words he had shared with Aveline on the jet, hit Liam like a physical blow. This was real. Aveline had really sent this doctor to help Maya. What did you find in Finch's research? He asked, stepping aside to let her enter. Dr. Chun set her case on the table, her expression grave. The truth, Mr. Byrne, and possibly, just possibly, a way to save your daughter, Doctor. Chun moved with quiet efficiency, setting up her laptop on the kitchen table while Leah made coffee for them both. He kept glancing toward Maya's room, where she was still eating breakfast and chatting with her stuffed giraffe. The normalcy of it, a little girl with her toy, felt surreal against the backdrop of conspiracy and deception that had consumed the last 12 hours of his life. Byrne, Doctor, Chun said, breaking into his thoughts. Before I show you what I've found, I need to explain something about neurosynaptic decay syndrome. Liam sat across from her, wrapping his hands around his coffee mug. I've read everything there is to read about NDS. The prognosis, the progression, the palliative care options. Yes, but there's something about the disease that isn't in the literature, she replied, her voice low and intense. Something Dr. Finch discovered, or rather exploited. She turned her laptop screen toward him. On it was a complex molecular diagram that meant nothing to Liam. NDS isn't a naturally occurring disease, she said simply. At least not in the form your daughter and Kellen Langford have. Liam stared at her, uncomprehending. What are you saying? I'm saying that while there is a natural form of NDS, a rare genetic condition that causes gradual neurological deterioration, a aggressive variant affecting your daughter was engineered. Her eyes held his, unflinching. It's a bioweapon, Mr. Byrne. A highly sophisticated one. The room seemed to tilt beneath Liam. He gripped the edge of the table to steady himself. That's not possible, he whispered. Maya was diagnosed at St. Jude's by real doctors, specialists who would have no way of knowing the difference, Dr. Chun explained gently. The engineered variant presents identically to natural NDS in all standard tests. The only way to detect the difference is through specialized genetic sequencing that isn't part of routine medical diagnostics. You're telling me my daughter was ... infected? Deliberately? The words felt wrong in his mouth. Impossible. Yes, Dr. Chun's expression was compassionate but direct, and so was Kellen Langford and approximately 87 other individuals across the country. Finch's records indicate they were all test cases for what he called Project Prometheus, a targeted neurological agent that could be deployed against specific individuals. Liam's mind raced, trying to process the horrific implications. But why? Why Maya? She's just a child. We're nobody. According to Finch's records, the subjects were selected based on specific genetic markers that made them ideal candidates for tracking the progression of the engineered. Age, background, social status, none of that mattered. They needed a diverse test population to validate the efficacy of the agent. Bile rose in Liam's throat. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to focus. You said Finch discovered this, but you're implying he's also responsible. Dr. Chun hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Finch was part of a research team that developed the agent, but he wasn't the originator of the project. She pulled up another file on her laptop, a heavily redacted document with a government seal at the top. This was a classified military program that began 15 years ago. Finch was brought in as a consultant, but he saw ... opportunities beyond the original scope. And Aveline? Where does she fit into this? Ms. Langford had no knowledge of the program's origin. When her brother was diagnosed with NDS 7 years ago, Finch approached her with a proposal, a private research initiative to develop a cure, backed by Langford Industries' considerable resources. He needed her money and her company's research facilities, but more than that, he needed a legitimate front for continuing his work. Liam tried to reconcile this with everything he'd seen and heard. So for 7 years, she funded research she thought would save her brother, not knowing she was actually funding the very thing that was killing him. Exactly. Dr. Chun's face darkened. Finch is brilliantly cruel. He used Langford's desperation as a shield while he continued developing and refining the agent. Meanwhile, he was selling both the weapon and its antidote to the highest bidders. Antidote? Liam's head snapped up. There's a cure? Not exactly a cure, but a countermeasure that can halt the progression of the engineered variant and potentially reverse some of the neurological damage. She pulled up another diagram. Finch developed it alongside the agent itself, standard protocol for bioweapon research. You create the antidote before you release the weapon to protect your own side. Hope, fragile and dangerous, flickered in Liam's chest. And this countermeasure, it could help Maya? Potentially, yes, but there's a complication. Dr. Chun's voice dropped even lower. The formula for the countermeasure was not in Finch's files at the facility. He must have kept it elsewhere as insurance. What we did find was a partial formulation and his research notes. Ms. Langford has her top. Scientists working to reconstruct it, but we need Finch, Liam finished, the hope in his chest collapsing. We need the complete formula. Yes. And the FBI needs him too, though, for different reasons. They want to contain the threat and bury all evidence of the program's existence. And that's why I'm here to get a baseline reading on Maya's condition so we can track any changes if we do develop a viable countermeasure. Liam glanced toward Maya's room again. You want to examine her? Just a blood sample and some basic neurological tests. Nothing invasive or painful. Dr. Chun's expression softened. Mr. Byrne, I understand your caution, but time is a factor here. The engineered variant progresses much faster than natural NDS. We have weeks, not months. The words hit Liam like a physical blow. Weeks. Not the 2 years the doctors had estimated. Just weeks before the tremors in Maya's hands spread to her arms, her legs, her respiratory system. Does she know? He asked, nodding toward Maya's room. About the accelerated timeline? No, Doctor, Chun admitted, but children often understand more than we give them credit for. She knows something is wrong, that it's getting worse. Liam nodded, making his decision. You can examine her, but I want to be present the entire time. Of course. They both turned at the sound of small footsteps. Maya stood in the doorway, her empty plate in one hand, Leopold the giraffe tucked under her arm. Daddy, she said hesitantly, her eyes on Dr. Chun. Is this the doctor for my shaky hands? Liam crossed to her, kneeling to meet her eyes. Yes, this is Dr. Chun. She's going to take a little blood and do some tests to see if she can help make the shaking go away. Maya considered this solemnly. Will it hurt? Just a tiny pinch for the blood, Doctor. Chun answered, coming to kneel beside Liam. I promise to be very careful. And you can hold Leopold the whole time. Maya studied the doctor's face with the penetrating gaze. Only children seem capable of searching for truth beneath the adult reassurances. Okay, she said finally. But can I wear my yellow socks? Yellow is brave. Yellow is definitely brave, Doctor. Chun agreed with a gentle smile. As Maya went to change her socks, Liam turned to the doctor. If we need Finch for the complete formula, how do we find him? He could be anywhere by now. Dr. Chun glanced at her phone, checking a message that had just arrived. Ms. Langford thinks she knows where he might be going. Her team found references in his calendar to a meeting scheduled for tonight at a private airfield outside the city. Someone called Helios. Helios Analytics, Liam said, remembering the shell company from the documents he'd pieced together. It's run by a doctor, Corbin Vance, a biochemist who lost his license for falsifying clinical trial data. He's one of Finch's collaborators. Dr. Chun nodded, impressed. You did your homework, Mr. Byrne. I had to. It was for Maya. The examination took less than 30 minutes. Maya was brave, as promised, holding Leopold tightly during the blood draw and following Dr. Chun's instructions for the neurological tests with serious concentration. She touched her nose with alternating fingers, walked in a straight line, tracked a pen light with her eyes, and answered questions about colors, shapes, and simple math problems. Through it all, Liam watched with a parent's agonizing awareness, noticing every slight tremor, every hesitation, every moment when Maya had to concentrate on movements that should have been automatic. When it was finished, Dr. Chun let Maya return to her room with a sticker shaped like a star and a lollipop. Once they were alone, her professional demeanor slipped slightly, revealing genuine concern. The progression is accelerating, she said quietly, logging her observations into her laptop. The tremors have spread beyond her hands to her forearms, and there's evidence of cognitive effects beginning. Word recall, sequencing, subtle but present. Liam's throat constricted. How long, Doctor? Chun met his gaze directly. Without intervention? 3 weeks? Maybe 4 before significant motor function impairment? Respiratory complications would follow soon after. And with intervention, if we get Finch's formula, if we can reconstruct a viable countermeasure, she hesitated. I can't make promises, Mr. Byrne, but the preliminary data suggests we could halt the progression and potentially reverse the damage. Maya could recover completely. The possibility was almost too much to bear. A light at the end of a tunnel he'd thought was sealed shut. What does Aveline want me to do? He asked, already knowing the answer. She wants your help finding Finch before the FBI does. Dr. Chun began packing her equipment. The meeting at the airfield is tonight at 11 p.m. Ms. Langford believes Finch will have the complete formula with him, his insurance policy for negotiating with whoever this Helios represents. And the FBI? They'll be watching the airfield too? Almost certainly. But they don't know about the meeting yet. We have a small window of opportunity. Liam thought of Director Evans and her warnings about Aveline. He thought of Graves and his divided loyalties. He thought of Maya in her yellow socks, being brave for a test she didn't understand. Tell Aveline I'm in, he said finally. But on one condition. Any formula we recover goes immediately to creating a countermeasure for all the affected patients, not just Maya and Kellen. Dr. Chun nodded. Miss Langford anticipated that request. She's already prepared a secure lab facility and assembled a team of research. The moment we have the formula, production begins for all 87 affected individuals. As Dr. Chun left with Maya's blood samples and test results, Liam stood at the window watching her car pull away. He knew he was being watched too by the FBI agents across the hall, by the team in the surveillance vehicle. He was trapped in a web of conflicting agendas: Aveline's determination to save her brother, the FBI's need to contain the evidence, Finch's desperate attempt to escape with his research. And at the center of it all was Maya, innocently drawing in her room, unaware that her father was about to risk everything for a chance to save her life. The weight of it all pressed down on him, but beneath the fear and exhaustion was a fierce, burning resolve. He had started this by confronting Aveline Langford in her glass tower. He would finish it by bringing down the man who had poisoned his daughter. Night fell over the city like a heavy curtain, streetlights blooming in its wake. Liam stood at Maya's bedroom door, watching her sleep. After Dr. Chun's visit, they had spent the day together, drawing, reading, building a fortress of pillows in the living room. He had memorized each moment, storing them away like treasures. Mrs. Henderson had arrived an hour ago, settling on the couch with her knitting and assurances that she would call if anything changed. She didn't ask questions about why he was going out at this hour, dressed all in black, his expression grimmer than she had ever seen it. She just nodded and told him to be careful. People who love their children the way you love Maya, she'd said quietly, they'd carry a special kind of strength. Remember that. Now, as the clock neared 10 p.m., Liam took one last look at his daughter's peaceful face before silently closing her door. He moved through the apartment, hyper-aware of the FBI agents across the hall, of the surveillance team watching the building. What he was about to do would be seen as betrayal by Director Evans, obstruction of a federal investigation at minimum. But for Maya, he would risk it all. He slipped out the back entrance of the building, avoiding the front where he knew the FBI surveillance vehicle was parked. In the alley behind the apartment complex, a black sedan idled, its engine a soft purr in the darkness. The window rolled down as he approached. Burn, Aveline Langford said from the back seat, her face pale in the dim light. Thank you for coming. Liam slid into the car beside her, noticing the changes the last 24 hours had wrought. Her immaculate corporate armor was gone, replaced by practical black clothing similar to his own. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and there was a weariness in her eyes that makeup couldn't conceal. How's Kellen? He asked as the car pulled away from the curb. Responding to treatment, she replied, a flicker of hope crossing her features. Dr. Chun's team synthesized a temporary stabilizing agent based on Finch's partial formula. It's not a cure, but it's bought us time. She studied his face. And Maya? The tremors are worse. She dropped her fork twice at dinner. The words felt like stones in his mouth. Dr. Chun was right about the acceleration. Aveline nodded, her jaw tight. All the more reason to get the complete formula tonight. She reached into a briefcase beside her and pulled out two small devices. These are encrypted communication units. They'll allow us to stay in contact if we get separated. As Liam took the earpiece, their eyes met, and he saw the unspoken question in hers. Do you trust me? The truth was, he didn't know. 24 hours ago, she had been a distant corporate figure, the CEO of Langford Industries, untouchable in her glass tower. Now they were bound by a shared enemy and a desperate need to save the people they loved. The FBI will be watching the airfield, he said, fitting the earpiece into place. Evans told me they've been tracking Finch's associates for months.
Yes.
But they don't know about this specific meeting. Aveline tapped on a tablet, bringing up a satellite view of a small private airfield surrounded by woods. We have an advantage. We know exactly when and where Finch will be meeting his contact. And who is this contact? Do we know? Not with certainty, but Dr. Chun's analysis of Finch's communications suggests it's a representative of a foreign military. The same people who funded his original research when the U.S. government shut down the project. The car turned onto a highway leading out of the city, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Liam watched the familiar landscape of his life recede in the rearview mirror, replaced by the unknown. Once we have the formula, he said. What then? Do we just let Finch go? Aveline's expression hardened. No, he answers for what he's done. Single quote. She met his gaze unflinchingly. I've made arrangements for him to be taken to a secure location where he'll assist in developing the countermeasure. After that, evidence of his crimes will be turned over to select authorities. Not the FBI, not Evans. Her voice was cold. As I told you, there's a faction within the government that supported Finch's work. Until I know exactly who's involved, I trust no one in those agencies. The car slowed, turning onto a narrow access road shrouded by dense trees. They drove in silence for several minutes before the driver killed the headlights, continuing by moonlight alone. We're approaching the perimeter, Aveline said quietly. From here we proceed on foot. The car stopped in a small clearing a quarter mile from the airfield. As they exited, Liam saw they weren't alone. Three figures emerged from a second vehicle, two men and Dr. Chun, all dressed in black like them. My security team, Aveline explained, former special forces. They've secured the area and confirmed that Finch hasn't arrived yet. One of the men approached, his movements fluid and precise. Miss Langford, we've located two FBI surveillance positions at the north and east entrances. Small teams, 2 agents each. They appear to be on standard observation protocol. Not an active operation. They don't know what's happening tonight, Aveline mused. Good, that gives us a window. She turned to the group. Dr. Chun will remain here with the medical equipment, ready to analyze the formula as soon as we secure it. Jensen, you'll maintain perimeter security and watch for additional FBI movement. Richards, you'll come with MR. Byrne and me. The precision of her command reminded Liam of what Evans had said. Aveline. Langford hadn't built a corporate empire by being sentimental. She was a strategist, calculating odds and deploying resources with military efficiency. They moved through the woods silently, guided by night vision goggles that transformed the darkness into an eerie green landscape. The airfield came into view, a small private facility with a single runway, a control tower, and 3 hangars. A chain-link fence surrounded the property, but Richards quickly located a section that had been cut and repaired with simple wire ties. Finch's entry point, he whispered, cutting the ties again to create an opening. Recently used. They slipped through the fence and made their way toward the central hangar, staying low and using the scattered equipment as cover. The airfield was quiet, just the occasional distant sound of commercial air traffic from the larger airport miles away. There, Aveline pointed to a sleek black car parked beside the smallest hangar. That's Finch's vehicle. A cold certainty settled in Liam's gut. Finch was here, somewhere in that hangar, possibly with the formula that could save Maya. After months of piecing together shredded documents, of suspicions and desperate hope, the moment of truth had arrived. They approached the hangar from different angles, Richards taking the high ground with a clear line of sight, while Liam and Aveline moved toward a side entrance. Through a small window they could see the interior mostly empty except for a single small aircraft. In the center of the concrete floor, 2 figures standing in a pool of harsh white light. One was Dr. Alistair Finch, looking considerably more disheveled than when Liam had last seen him on the monitor at the research facility. His shoulder was bandaged where Graves had shot him, and his normally immaculate appearance had given way to the harried look of a man on the run. The other figure was a stranger, a tall, thin man with silver hair and an expensive suit that seemed out of place in the utilitarian setting. Between them was a metal briefcase. That's not Vance, Aveline whispered. I don't recognize him. They listened through a small gap in the hangar door. The price has increased, Finch was saying, his voice tight with strain, given recent complications. The silver-haired man smiled thinly. Complications of your own making, Doctor. My principals are not in the habit of renegotiating agreed-upon terms. Your principals aren't the ones who just had their entire operation compromised, Finch snapped. The FBI is closing in. Langford knows everything. The additional risk justifies additional compensation. Perhaps. The man seemed unperturbed by Finch's agitation. But what guarantees do we have that the formula is complete, that you haven't kept some crucial element to yourself as ... insurance? Finch gestured to the briefcase. It's all there. The complete synthesis process. The molecular structure, everything needed to mass-produce both the agent and the countermeasure. I've fulfilled my end of our arrangement. Now I expect you to fulfill yours. The silver-haired man reached for the briefcase, but Finch pulled it back. Payment first. Single quotes with a sigh, the man reached into his jacket and removed a small electronic device. The agreed-upon sum has been transferred to your offshore account. You can verify it yourself. Finch took the device, checking the display with evident satisfaction. Excellent. Now there's one additional matter we need to discuss. My extraction. I'll need immediate transport out of the country. Tonight. That wasn't part of our arrangement. It is now. Finch's voice hardened. Lest you'd prefer I take my research elsewhere. I'm sure there are other interested parties who would be more accommodating. The standoff stretched for several tense seconds before the silver-haired man nodded. Very well. The plane is fueled and ready. But we leave immediately. Single quotes. Liam and Aveline exchanged a glance. This was it. Their last chance to get the formula before Finch disappeared forever. We need to move now, Liam whispered. Before they load that briefcase onto the plane, Aveline touched her earpiece. Richards, on my signal, cut the power to the hangar. Dr. Chun, be ready to receive the package. She looked at Liam, her expression resolute. Are you ready? Liam thought of Maya, of her trembling hands trying to hold a crayon, of her brave smile when Dr. Chun took her blood. He thought of the 86 other victims of Finch's monstrous research, including Kellen Langford. He thought of all the lies, all the pain, all the lives hanging in the balance. Ready, he said, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Let's finish this. Aveline nodded once, then whispered into her combs. 3, 2, 1, ... execute. The lights in the hangar went out with a resonant thunk, plunging the interior into darkness. Confusion erupted instantly. Finch's startled shout, the silver-haired man's curse, the sound of the briefcase hitting the concrete floor. Liam and Aveline moved as one, pushing through the side door and activating the night vision goggle. The green-tinged interior revealed Finch scrambling for the briefcase while his contact reached inside his jacket, likely for a weapon. Richard's voice came through their earpieces. Armed, hostile, taking the shot. A soft theft echoed through the hangar. The silver-haired man staggered backward, a tranquilizer dart protruding from his neck. He crumpled to the floor with a heavy thud. Finch had the briefcase now and was running toward the small aircraft, panic evident in his jerky movements. Liam sprinted after him while Aveline circled to cut off his escape route. It's over, Finch, Liam shouted, gaining on him with each stride. Finch spun around, wild-eyed, clutching the briefcase to his chest like a shield. You, he spat, recognizing Liam even in the darkness. The janitor. Do you have any idea what you've done? Who you're dealing with? I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Liam replied, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. A man who poisoned children for profit, who betrayed the trust of everyone who believed in him. Poisoned? Finch laughed, a brittle, unhinged sound. I advanced science by decades, created something revolutionary. The applications are limitless, including my daughter. Liam took a step closer. Was she just an application to you? A test case? Finch's eyes darted around, searching for escape. Subject 42. Ideal genetic profile, optimal age for tracking neurological degradation patterns. His clinical detachment was more chilling than any rage could have been. Nothing personal, Mr. Byrne. Just science. Give me the briefcase. Alistair Aveline's voice cut through the darkness as she emerged from behind the aircraft, blocking his path. It's finished. There's nowhere left to run. Aveline. Finch's tone shifted, becoming almost conciliatory. Think about what you're doing. This research is worth billion. We could still partner. I can save Kellen. I'm the only one who can. You're the one who poisoned him in the first place, she said, her voice like ice. 7 years. Alistair. 7 years of watching my brother deteriorate while you fed me lies and false hope. Finch's face contorted with desperation. It wasn't personal. It was necessary. Kellen had the ideal genetic markers, the perfect test subject. He held up the briefcase. But the work is valid. The countermeasure is real. I can prove it. Then prove it, Aveline said, taking another step toward him. Give us the formula. Help us save all the victims of your science, not just Kellen, not just Maya, all of them. Single quotes for a moment. Something like genuine conflict crossed Finch's face. Then his expression hardened, calculation replacing emotion. And what do I get in return? Protection, immunity, life in prison instead of a death sentence, Aveline replied coldly, and the knowledge that you finally did one decent thing with your brilliant, twisted mind. Finch clutched the briefcase tighter. Not good enough. It's all you're going to get, Liam said, moving closer. Because right now, the FBI is closing in. They know about your meeting tonight. They know about your foreign buyer. They'll be here any minute. And when they arrive, they won't be offering deals. They'll be looking to bury you and everything, you know. It was a bluff, but one rooted in enough truth to be believable. Finch's eyes darted to the hangar doors as if expecting federal agents to burst through at any moment. What's it going to be, Finch? Aveline pressed. A chance to salvage some small piece of your legacy or nothing at all. The sound of distant sirens drifted through the hangar, not part of their plan, but a fortuitous coincidence that lent credibility to Liam's bluff. Finch's resolve visibly crumbled. Fine, he snarled, dropping the briefcase at Aveline's feet. Take it, but I want your word protection from whoever's coming. You have it, she replied, picking up the briefcase. Richard's secure doctor. Finch, the security specialist, emerged from the shadows, zip-tying Finch's hands before he could change his mind. Liam grabbed the briefcase, opening it to confirm the contents: vials of clear liquid, flash drives, and binders of research notes. Dr. Chun, he said into his earpiece, we've secured the formula. Preparing for extraction. Copy that, came her efficient reply. Medical team standing by. As they moved toward the exit, the distant sirens grew louder. Richards pressed a small device and emergency power kicked in, bathing the hangar in dim red light. The silver-haired man was still unconscious on the floor, secured with zip ties like his associate. Who is he? Liam asked, gesturing to the prone figure. We'll find out, Aveline replied grimly. He's coming with us. They exited the hangar just as headlights appeared at the airfield's main gate. The FBI had arrived, right on schedule, despite not being part of their plan. Move, Richards urged, leading them back toward the fence breach. We have 3 minutes before they secure the perimeter. They made it to the tree line as the first FBI vehicles pulled up to the hangar. From their position in the darkness, they could see agents in tactical gear pouring out, weapons drawn. Among them was Director Evans, her expression grim as she coordinated the response. They'll find his car, the plane, and evidence of the meeting, Aveline murmured, but not what they really came for. She patted the briefcase Liam carried. They reached the clearing where Dr. Chun waited with the medical equipment. Finch was secured in the back of one vehicle, while the still unconscious silver-haired man was placed in another. I need to examine the formula immediately, Doctor, Chun said, taking the briefcase from Liam. She opened it, quickly scanning the contents. This looks complete. If we move now, we can begin synthesis within the hour. Aveline turned to Liam. Go with Dr. Chun. Make sure that formula gets to the lab safely. I'll deal with Finch and our mystery guest. What about the FBI? They'll be looking for us. Let them look. A cold smile curved her lips. By the time they piece together what happened here tonight, we'll have already begun treatment for all the affected patients, including Maya. Liam hesitated, torn between staying with Aveline to ensure Finch didn't somehow escape justice, and going with Dr. Chun to safeguard the formula that could save his daughter. Aveline seemed to read his mind. I promise you, Finch will answer for what he's done. To Maya, to Kellen, to all of them. Go be with your daughter. She needs you more than I need you right now. The decision made itself. Liam nodded and climbed into the vehicle with Dr. Chun, the precious briefcase secured between them. As they pulled away, he looked back to see Aveline watching them go, a solitary figure against the night sky. Her battle far from over, but its most crucial objective achieved. 3 weeks later, Liam sat beside Maya's hospital bed, watching her sleep. The tremors in her hands had stopped 5 days after beginning treatment with the synthesized countermeasure. The cognitive effects had begun to reverse soon after. The doctors, real ones this time, not Finch's collaborators, were cautiously optimistic about a full recovery. A soft knock at the door drew his attention. Aveline stood there, looking more like herself, again composed, elegant, but with a new warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there when they'd first met. "How is she?" Aveline asked quietly, entering the room. "Better every day," Liam replied, his voice thick with emotion. "She drew a picture this morning without dropping the crayon once. Said she's planning a whole new castle design." Aveline smiled, genuine pleasure lighting her features. "And the yellow sun? The biggest and brightest one yet." He studied her face. "How's Kellen? Walking on his own now, talking more clearly. The doctors say he might be able to go sailing again by summer." She sat in the chair beside him. "And the other patients are showing similar improvements. All 78 of them." 78? Liam frowned. "I thought there were 87. Sadness flickered across Aveline's face. "We were too late for 9 of them. The disease had progressed too far. The weight of those lost lives hung in the air between them, casualties of Finch's cruel science that no victory could bring back." "What about Finch?" Liam asked. "And his foreign contact?" "Finch is in a secure facility, continuing to assist with refinements to the countermeasure under very close supervision. When that work is complete, he'll face justice, not public justice, but justice nonetheless." Her expression hardened momentarily. "As for his contact, we identified him as Colonel Anton Yurev, former Russian military intelligence. He's been returned to his government with evidence of his unauthorized operations on American soil." Liam didn't ask for details. Some things were better left in the shadows. "And the FBI? Evans? Still investigating. But the trail has gone conveniently cold. The evidence we left at the airfield points to Finch fleeing the country with his research. They found enough to shut down what remains of the program, but not enough to trace it back to its origins." "You protected them," Liam observed. "The government officials who started it all." "No," Aveline corrected him firmly. "I protected the cure. If the full truth came out now, the countermeasure would be classified, weaponized, or buried. This way, it remains a medical breakthrough available to anyone who needs it." She reached into her purse and withdrew a small envelope, handing it to Liam. Inside was a keycard and an address. "What's this?" "A house," she said simply, "near the water, with a big oak tree in the yard. It's yours, if you want it. For you and Maya." Liam stared at the keycard, emotions warring within him. "I can't accept this." "You can, Aveline. Not as charity. Partnership. I'm establishing the Langford Burn Foundation for Neurological Research. I need a co-director who understands both the science and the human cost. Someone incorruptible. A janitor and a CEO," Liam said with a slight smile. "Unlikely partners. The best kind." She rose to leave, then paused, looking down at Maya's peaceful form. "She's extraordinary, your daughter. Like her father." Before Liam could respond, Aveline leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, "for having the courage to stop me in that parking lot, for changing everything." Then she was gone, leaving Liam with his sleeping daughter and the promise of a future neither of them had dared to imagine just weeks before. Maya stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy," she murmured sleepily. "Was that the nice lady from the castle picture?" Liam smiled, tucking the blanket around her. "Yes, sweet pea, that was her." "I knew it," Maya said with the simple certainty of childhood. "She looks different when she's not being a queen." "A queen?" Maya nodded sagely. "In my new picture. She's the queen of the castle. And you're the brave knight who fought the dragon." She held up her hands, turning them this way and that, admiring their steadiness. "And I'm the princess who got better." Liam's heart swelled as he looked at his daughter, healthy, whole, and full of dreams again. Outside the hospital window, the first rays of dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and promise. "Yes," he said softly, "you're the princess who got better."